What's good, combat sports fans? What's up to the homies that be watching and the whole 3 girls that are out there checking out my content. We've got another fight night card to break down. Surprisingly good one, I'm not gonna lie. I have no qualms really with this one. I will say, if you've been looking at the recent main event announcements, it's looking real bad. So let's just take this one and enjoy it. First fight of the night, Daniel Marcos taking on Qileng. Daniel Marcos is sitting at a nice 15-0 record. Sorry for the graphic, I just now realized that I didn't even put in Qileng's record. He's 25-11, and he's coming off of a decent win against a not too decent fighter in Johnny Munoz Jr. I mean, he's alright, but it's not the craziest win. I think Daniel Marcos is going to get this one done. He's just a little bit better at playing the point game. If he can survive the first round and not get clipped too bad by the very basic fundamental 1-2 type striking that Qileng's going to be throwing at him, with like almost no mix-up, not really changing the tempo or anything. If he can just survive the first round, not get clipped too bad, I think he's got this one in the bank pretty easily. Daniel Marcos is really good at, chopping them calves, so expect that. Moving on to the next fight, at 145 pounds, we've got Hyder Amil taking on Fernie Garcia. I feel like this is a really solid opponent for Hyder Amil to be taking on in his first fight in the UFC. He came off of Dana White's Contender Series. He had a really good high-paced grappling match, and now he's going to be looking to build off of that momentum. Getting a contract off of a decision on Dana White's Contender Series is pretty impressive. He is also a little bit more dangerous on the feet. I feel like Fernie Garcia is smoother on the feet and more comfortable, but I definitely don't think he has as much finishing potential. Doesn't pack as hard of a hit. I think Hyder Amil is going to instantly try to, go to the grappling, and it's going to be too much for Fernie, and he's going to just find a way to win by utilizing that. Moving on into the 205-pound division, we've got Zach Pauga taking on Bogdan Guskov. Now, Bogdan is a channel meme for me. He ruined one of the most beautiful parlays I have ever had. It was a full card parlay, and it was so close to actually hitting. But Bogdan ruined it, and I lost a lot of money. And you know what? That's the name of the game. Zach Pauga has no chin, and I feel like even though Bogdan got smoked by Volkan Oezdemir, a former title challenger, mind you, not on the same level of Zach Pauga. Even though he got smoked in that one, I think he has bombs in his hands. He usually gets the finish, and I think Zach Pauga just doesn't have the same finishing potential on the feet. He's not a good enough grappler to take him down and sub him or do something like that, I feel like. So yeah, I'm leaning Bogdan. Up into the welterweight division now, we've got Jeremiah Wells taking on Max Griffin. This is a really good fight. Jeremiah Wells, kind of a fraud, no offense, but also I have to spit some facts here. A lot of his wins kind of iffy when you look at them. I'm specifically thinking of the Matthew Semelsberger fight. I feel like he probably should have lost that fight, even though I picked Jeremiah Wells and it helped my record. I don't know if he really did deserve that win. And Max Griffin, he has decent hands, but his weakness is getting neutralized on the ground. That's usually what his opponents source, and that's how they get a lot of wins on him. I mean, he's 19-10. You don't get 10 losses unless you have a significant hole in your game, I feel like, and he does, and it's being exploited a lot, and it happens to be Jeremiah Wells' strength, so I'm going Jeremiah Wells by a decision. Moving on up the card, we've got Devin Clark taking on Marcin Prachnio. Marcin Prachnio isn't that good. I can see why he's such a big underdog. He has wins over fighters that I can't even believe that he has. What is it? What's the one in particular I'm thinking of? Khalil Roundtree. Yeah, I don't understand how he has that win. His last win was against William Knight in a fight that looked like William Knight rigged for himself. I'm so glad he got cut after that. Fuck William Knight. That fight sucked. But you know what? Devin Clark, even though he's lost me some bets and he's not that good of a fighter, I think he is just a lot better than Marcin Prachnio, and he has the grappling to go to. Marcin wouldn't be able to do anything on the ground. He'll be a fish out of water. I'm going to have to lean Devin Clark. Moving on up the card, the only women's fight on the card tonight, or I'm sorry, not tonight, for Saturday, but Loma Lookboonme taking on Bruna Brasil. Bruna Brasil, again, another one of these frauds. Not that good. I think Loma is actually underrated, in general. She's just outside of the top 15. And she belongs in the top 10, realistically. There's not too many, really technical straw weights outside of the rankings that you can look to, aside from Loma. She doesn't belong there. I think she's going to smoke Bruna Brasil. It might be a little bit close on the feet in the first round, but I really think that Loma is going to take over in the second and the third with the leg kicks, and she's just going to land more. She's going to accumulate more damage. Moving on up the card, Timothy Cuamba taking on Bolaji Aki. I'm going with Bolaji Aki. They have similar fight styles. They play the long-range kickboxing game, but Bolaji Aki plays it way better, and he's more explosive, and he has more power. He's more dangerous of a fighter. Now, if I have to give Timothy an edge anywhere, I would say maybe in the cardio, but he's also just not as built into 155 pounds as I feel like Bolaji is. Bolaji looks like a tank of a man. He definitely has to cut a decent amount of weight to get there. I don't know about Timothy Cuamba. He looks a little bit more lanky. He looks like he could fill out the frame over time. But yeah, ultimately, when you watch film on both of them side by side, you can see the difference. So I'm going with Bolaji. Moving on up the card, the 8th fight in our 14-fight video. Trevin Giles taking on Carlos Prates. I was honestly leaning towards Trevin Giles all week, but looking at the film right before I made this, it's clear to me that Carlos is going to come out there like a bat out of hell. He's going to be looking for a finish. He's oddly thin. Really, really thin legs, but they pack a lot of power, kind of reminiscent of Yair Rodriguez. Like, don't judge a book by its cover. With people like this, you can see it in the whip in that kick. I'm thinking specifically of like a head kick knockout he got, I think like last year or something on the regional circuit. Looks amazing. I think Trevin Giles is going to make it a lot closer than people probably think that are leaning towards Carlos. But ultimately I think Carlos is going to find a knockout. Moving on up the card, Rodolfo Vieira taking on Armen Petrosyan, who once again, now that this fight's being rebooked, is still an underdog. Just barely, but still an underdog, which trips me out. I feel like Armen should have proven to a lot of people with that Christian Leroy Duncan win, even though it was close, that he's probably on a level slightly above Rodolfo Vieira, I would say. I mean, I guess that's why the odds reflect it like this, but you would think Armen would be the favorite. He's just got crisper striking. If Rodolfo can't get him to the ground and kind of suffocate him or pretty quickly wrap up a choke, I don't think he's going to be able to do it later. I don't think he has much of a chance outside of the first round. He has improved his cardio over his UFC career. I'll give him those props, and he's slimmed down. He's not packing as much muscle, but I think Armen's just going to find too much damage on the feet. Moving on, we've got Michael Johnson taking on Darrius Flowers at 155 pounds, which I think is a much better fit for Darrius Flowers. His UFC debut against Jake Matthews, just undersized. Like, you could tell Jake Matthews kind of dwarfed him and got an easy submission. I think Michael Johnson is better than Darrius Flowers everywhere. Packs more power, most likely. Maybe not more power, but he's so fast and precise it doesn't really matter. Obviously more speed. Fought way better fighters. He has way more skill, yada yada yada, the list goes on. I still have to lean towards Darrius Flowers because Michael Johnson got chinned by somebody that isn't really a knockout artist in Diego Ferreira. And Darrius Flowers didn't look great in his UFC debut, and you can tell that he's not as skilled, but I think it just takes landing one with Michael Johnson now, and he'll probably be able to do that. So I'm going to lean Darrius. Moving on up the card, Brad Tavares taking on Gregory Rodriguez. This is like a sleeper fight on the card, probably my favorite one outside of the main event. I'm going to have to lean towards Gregory Rodriguez. I think it's going to be a car crash, just a straight collision from the get-go. Brad Tavares is going to be trying to land his leg kicks, but I think he's just not as high Q of a fighter as he would need to be at like the top echelon of middleweight. I think Gregory Rodriguez is at that level, and he's younger in his career. I don't know if he's actually younger. Dude looks old as shit, but he for sure in fight years is younger than Brad Tavares. Tavares has just been through too many wars, and that's why we all love him. He's a fan favorite because he just always fights the best of the best at middleweight. But I think Gregory Rodriguez, he has too much power and way, way too good of a chin. I mean, I know he has been knocked out, but like, come on. I'm going to have to trust RoboCop. Obama RoboCop. Moving on up the card, Ihor Potieria taking on Robert Brzyczek. Robert Brzyczek is the best prospect out of all of them that I'm trusting that are debuting. Ihor Potieria, already, when I saw that he was on this, I don't trust his chin, and I don't even think he's that good. His only good win is over a super aged, leaving the sport, Shogun Rua. Robert Brzyczek, he is kind of short for middleweight, but he has super, super deceptively long range, and he fights so well behind that range. Watch his highlights. His knockouts are ridiculous. I think he's really quickly going to find a knockout, and if you're looking for a safe prop Robert Brzyczek by knockout on this card. I really feel like first round, even if you want to. Moving on into the co-main event of the night, and now I'll try to slow my pace a little bit. because I'm going to be talking for at least a minute and a half about both of these fights. Dan Ige taking on Andre Fili. Andre Fili is one of my favorite fighters outside of the rankings. Obviously, anybody that's watched my prediction videos more than once and has seen him, a couple times now, over the year and a half I've been covering the sport, he's just one of my favorite fighters. He fights like literally 30 minutes out from where I live right now, so I'm always going to be a fan of everyone off that team. But he's also just one of those people that comes into scrap with everyone in featherweight, and he gets fed a lot of people that are, they're trying to make stars out of, and a lot of the time he sends them back, or he makes it a close-ass scrap. I mean, look at the Bryce Mitchell fight, look at the Sadiq Youssef fight, you can go down the list. He has a lot of them. Dan Ige is past that point of being like a new up-and-coming contender. We know how good Dan Ige is, and I do think he is a little bit better than Andre Fili. I just think his fight IQ is a little bit more there. He's better at following a game plan. He packs more power. I don't know if he's faster, but he's definitely more explosive. There's fights like these where you really do kind of see a clear-cut winner, and you kind of still, for some reason, want to side with the other fighter, and that's what I'm doing here. I'm going to be siding with Andre Fili. I do think that he could fight behind his range well. If he is just 100% on, I think that he beats Dan Ige. With both of them at their best, I do think that Andre Fili, if he's on, he'll be able to snipe clean shots and actually be able to get like a TKO, a rough-looking one. But I think that I'm going to hedge Andre Fili by like a late TKO, maybe second round. Moving on into the main event, we've got Jack Hermansson taking on Joe Pyfer. This is a great fight. I love Jack Hermansson. It's been a while since we've seen him. I think he got probably pretty fucked up from that fight with Roman Dolidze. That was a tough loss for him. A fight I was honestly so surprised that he lost, but he was just put in a weird position, got TKO'd. Wasn't the worst loss in the world, but then he had 2 canceled bouts, one with Derek Brunson, one with Brendan Allen after that in 2023 and 2022. Yeah, no, it's been a minute since we've seen him. But you know what? Now he's taking on Joe Pyfer, and I feel like this is just a horrible matchup for him. Realistically, like stylistically, it's just a bad matchup. And then on top of that, Joe Pyfer hits supposedly harder than Ngannou. I mean, it's on video. I believe it. Dude looks like pound for pound he has one of the hardest punches on the planet. And you can tell he's hungry. I mean, if you listen to his story, he's been through a lot to get to this point. I don't think he's just going to let it slip out of his hands. This is going to be a really hard one for Jack Hermansson. He turned back a prospect in Chris Curtis, but that's somebody that just doesn't go for it the same as Joe Pyfer and does not hit as hard. And he does hit hard, don't get me wrong, in Chris Curtis, but not the same. I don't think Jack Hermansson is going to be able to play the point game, landing like body kicks and leg kicks and just staying elusive. He can try to. If he goes to the grappling, I do think that Hermansson's more slick and his jiu-jitsu is probably better, but I still trust Joe Pyfer to even win there. I mean, if you watch his submission grappling events or honestly even just... No, yeah, that's all you can really watch with him. If you watch him, he's pretty damn good. But that's going to be all for the video today. So tune into my TikTok if you want to see some early betting odds and props and whatnot. That's where I break down fight news. And yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. I'll see y'all this weekend at the fights. And go 49ers with the Super Bowl. Let's go, baby.